And we're going to go now to our first speaker, who is Sandra Ramírez. So welcome, Sandra. Um, Sandra's a chemist, a scientist, and a feminist activist for women's human rights, and a volunteer of Colombian WDI, where she's from, and also the Mexican chapter where Sandra is living. So the title of Sandra's talk today is Censorship and Freedom of Speech for Gender Critical Feminists in Colombia. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll pass over to you.
I am going to talk about this. Recently, some members of the Colombian chapter of WDI went to the Colombian Congress to participate in a public hearing that intended to regulate the use of poverty blockers in minors. Indeed, we obviously have gender critical concerns. Reaction of our interventions were vehemently violent. I am going to be talking about cancel culture as a punishment that trans activists in Colombia apply once gender critical activists provide our opinion. A member of us is a lesbian radical feminist. Her name is Lucille Dupin. She's also a single mother and a musician. She has been affected professionally by portraying her opinion on the issue. She shared a video of her intervention in this hearing on her social network, and this video went viral. It is important to mention that this is how trans activists knew that this hearing was taking place, just watching us. Unfortunately, a magazine called Volcanicas stigmatized her to the point of canceling her in different artistic scenarios, depriving her from several job opportunities as well. It is not the first time that this magazine does that. In 2022, Laura Lecuona, who is the contact of Mexican's chapter, lived a similar situation. This journal is funded by the Open Society, that is a foundation well known for purple washing and for using other causes to wash them too. Her perspective was immediately associated with the far-right postures and religious groups and punctually transphobia without any evidence. Different members of this magazine have been feeding this myth, tagging her job on different networks that directly affect her professionally and bias people's beliefs about her, about Lucille. As WDI Colombia, we reject any sex-based rights deprivation. And this is the case in which males have been prevailed before us. These people have no fear on affecting our rights to this point, which is ridiculous because they tag us as anti-rights, but it is obvious that the only anti-rights are them that triggers our right to work, which it is a legitimate right. Secondly, I'd like to mention another case of cancel culture that occurred as consequence of us being critical of this topic. It is about another member of WDI Colombia who also participated in this hearing. Her name is Alejandra Vera. She's a well-known activist who works strongly against sexual trafficking in Colombia and fights against the promotion of the gender identity ideology. She's also the representative of women and girls in two laws made for the benefit of us. And she was democratically elected for this purpose. I mention this because she went to that hearing in that condition. Due to her perspective, which is based on research and logical thinking, as well as Lucille's, Volcanicas denied that she basically represents those two laws in Colombia. Her foundation against sexual exploitation stopped receiving fundings. She had to move to a different part of the city she lives because of persecution, and had to change her son from school. Sadly, we understand that we are not the first, nor will be the last to suffer this persecution for raising our voices. However, we believe it is important to share this and provide evidence that this treatment is widespread and affects those of us who advocate that women are human beings with human rights, not essences or transactional objects, since this type of treatment dehumanizes us. Thanks for listening to me.
Do you think it's getting worse there now?
Yeah, it is so sad, but Colombia is a country that have a context of armed conflict. If you have heard something about our reality, and we work a lot to change the right-wing governments. Now there is a left-wing government, but this government came with a lot of laws in detriment of our rights. First of all, they made a direction of sex work, which is, well, it's so crazy because CEDAW has recommendations, entire recommendations, in order to tell the states that prostitution and trafficking is the same. But I don't know what a Colombian state thinks about it. Of course, it doesn't care because they made this sex work direction, and of course they also come with these transgender laws that were approved the last year in Spain. It is important to mention that how is the name of that? Irene Montero is a good political friend of our Vice President Francia Marquez. So the agenda is the same, and it is so sad because as I mentioned before, this treatment dehumanizes us.
How about public opinion? What are the normal people thinking? Are they starting to become piqued by this?
Well, first of all, for example, about transgender stuffs in general, I think that this is a conversation that are having, well, as like a gender critical activist and maybe trans activist circles, but people in general does not speak a lot of this. And I think that maybe don't understand the implications of that. We have been a little bit, no, we are trying to do some pedagogy about that, because, for example, laws of women in Colombia are recently, and we are trying to teach people how we can have these, for example, women as a figure in our legislation. And this was fights of a lot of women, and we can erase that. So that's the panorama in that area. In the area of prostitution, it is so sad because Colombia has a lot of narco culture because of our situation, and narco culture has done lots of sad things on femininity, on the expression of femininity. War context make that our oppression look so raw in all aspects, and narco culture has made so many damage in Colombian image, that what is Colombian imaginary, that of what is a woman. So prostitution is so normalized in the mind of Colombian people, and the main thing that normal people says is that if women want, why not? And
Ahora
well,
dígale
we know
que no
that
haga
it
ahorita
is
que tenga.
a more deep discussion about that. So this is the general panorama in these
Ah,
both areas.